A walk around World Showcase is 1.2 miles, and the Magic Kingdom has a 1.5 mile perimeter that I know I spend a lot of time bouncing back and forth from side to side. There's a lot of walking at Disney World, and we want to have the endurance to survive it.
Welcome to Always Planning Disney, where planning is half the fun. I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Melissa.
And on this channel, we talk through all of the details that go into making our vacations magical. So we talked about this a while back, Melissa, but we both hurt a little bit our last vacation. I was in a lot of pain by probably a few days in. And I was proud of myself because the trip before that, I had had a lot of blister issues and I prevented those last trip. And I kept my feet pretty happy. I had some good shoes, but my hips were like super unhappy from all of the standing and walking. So I would really like to feel better next trip, especially since it might be a longer trip for us. So for me, I'm thinking about this sort of in terms of New Year's resolutions, but it's not about like looking good for my Disney pictures or something, although like that's a valid goal in itself, but like that's not what I'm about. I just want to feel better on my next Disney trip.
I also was sore after day 2 or 3. And granted, that was when we slipped a 2-day detour to Universal Studios into our Disney trip, which is demanding and exhausting. And it's a whole other world over there. And I love to walk, and I had a hard time this last trip. But one of my favorite things is when my youngest would fall asleep in a stroller and I could just circle World Showcase as he napped. I mean, 2-3 times around, no problem, highlight of my day. But knowing that that is how I am and what I like to do, I was still exhausted last trip. I was sore. It felt like every muscle hurt. I realized my shoes were too broken in. I was whipped last trip. So I need a plan to survive.
Yeah, I think we both noticed our aging last trip. It was a bit of a rude awakening for both of us. So my goal over the next year, because we're a little over a year out from when we think we're taking our next vacation, we haven't booked it yet, but that's what it's looking like. It's probably about a year from now. So my goal is to build up muscle strength and endurance so that I'm using the right muscles to get me through those long days of both walking and standing in line, because I think it was just as much the standing on the concrete as it was the walking miles and miles and miles.
Yes, and I realized I don't really know how to stand in a way that doesn't create pain. Like I find myself doing lots of weird like shifting. I'm sure it's making it worse as I stand there, and that ground is incredibly hard and those lines very long. My goal is to continue to be able to go full power all day in a park, even as I continue to age. We have been focusing a lot on planning breaks. In fact, this is like always planning downtime sort of for us. That's our theme. But I know that when we get there, we don't wake up early, but we still hit the parks in the morning and we go straight through to close. And we're probably going to want to continue to do that. And I want to be able to keep up with it. I have a really solid walking habit when the weather is nice, but I don't move enough during the winter. It sort of falls off. And that's when we go to Disney. So I'm way out of my game.
Yeah, it's a problem. And that's sort of like part one of my plan is to make walking a habit, because I think you have a lot more of a habit built than I have. So for now, for this first part of 2022, my goal is just to get in a family walk most days. And I figured this does kind of quadruple duty in terms of like being a good thing, because it also serves as quality family time. It gets us all some fresh air, which can be hard for us to manage in the winter months. And it gives our dog some exercise. She's not even 2 yet, so she definitely needs it. But it's January in Minnesota right now, and we've already had some sub-zero temperatures. In fact, that might be what it is out there right now. I didn't even look at the thermometer this morning. I just know that it's really cold out there. So getting out for a walk every single day isn't possible. And I often am sort of an all or nothing kind of goal setter, but here I'm going to try to be a lot more reasonable and just do the best that I can when I can, weather permitting, and try not to let like I don't want to be the thing that gets in my way, but rather it's several degrees below zero and it's not a good idea to go out. And then as I get closer to our trip, I do plan to set some actual like concrete step count kind of goals and increase those over time. But I'm just not going to worry about the numbers just yet. And we're in the same boat as you. the last few months before our trip are when it's going to be winter in Minnesota because we're looking at a winter vacation. So I'm having trouble figuring out what I'm going to be able to do in terms of a walking plan for those last few months when I'm really trying to ramp up that step count. So if you have any thoughts as a Michigander about getting those steps in when it's cold, I mean, we've used mall walking in the past, but with our current location, the nearest mall is about half an hour away. So that's just not practical for like a weeknight after work kind of walking. And so in town, we've just got like going to the gym or walking on a track. And I can't do either of those with my kid. And I'd like to build up his endurance too with his like little legs. So I don't know, is like, do I need to buy a treadmill? I don't know what to do.
A treadmill is not a bad idea. I don't do very well with them because while I love walking outdoors. And so I walk a ton when the weather permits. I'm not logging what you do at Disney World. I've seen people do 20,000 or more steps a day, but my average, granted, I haven't worn my Fitbit in months, but I do about 12 to 14,000 in a normal, nice weather day for me. And that's because I have 2 rather long routes I do throughout my neighborhood. And sometimes I will do one or both of those in a day. I love getting out and walking. However, as soon as the weather drops, I am no longer doing that. And so of course my step count drops off with it. I do have a under the desk elliptical, which you can't use under a desk because your knees hit it. So I pull it out and I'll try to hop on that to keep myself moving. But the problem I have with those walks are that I know I can get off my elliptical at any time. And when I'm walking outside, there's just a mental health aspect to it. My thoughts flow. I can work on creative projects that way. I can think about the topics we're going to discuss. I can solve problems at work. And I just can't do that on the elliptical. It doesn't happen. And so sometimes I try to put something on TV. We've talked about this when I think we were discussing souvenirs and somehow free YouTube park walkthrough videos came up. So I will try to pretend as if I am also walking through a park, but I still know I can get off at any time. So I suffer from those Midwest winters as well. I thought I was doing great last month, bundling up and getting out there and walking. And then the weather hit the teens. That's not sub-zero, but it's freezing. The teens, it's cold. The wind is whipping out there right now. I can hear it through the window. So I'm not going to get out there. And I know I can get off my elliptical at any time. So I don't know exactly what I am going to do. I'm debating getting some like good gear for walking outdoors in the winter. I know people make something like this. I'll take recommendations. That's the only plan I have because I don't have the willpower to stay on a treadmill or an elliptical.
Yeah. Okay. Well, something to keep thinking about and brainstorming, I guess, because at least we'll have the summer and fall. I'm hoping maybe I'll like work up a really good habit. And so then it will be harder to break that habit when it gets really cold out or something. I don't know. Okay. So walking is my first goal. My second goal is to strengthen those stabilizing muscles. And I'm pretty sure those have just been all out of whack since pregnancy. I had to do some physical therapy while I was pregnant because everything was like all out of whack and messed up and very painful. And I think things just like never really got back to normal, whatever normal is postpartum. So I've been a Mama Strong member for several years. That's an online workout program that I found to be really good and body positive and all of those wonderful things. It's short workouts. And so I'm trying to make those workouts a daily habit. They're anywhere from 5 to like 15 or 20 minutes. And they do have a hip flexor fix me course that I'm thinking might be helpful for me because that's where I really felt a lot of the pain. And I know I've started in the past, but I didn't finish it. So I'm going to get back to that and try and strengthen and like get the right things firing and all of that stuff. And hopefully it will help.
Yeah, and core strength is so important. I had to do a 12-week diastasis recti program after my second pregnancy because I just wasn't stable enough to do any other type of workout, and you really have to strengthen that first. And I think that it's great that there is a growing awareness now of sort of strengthening after pregnancy, because we know it changes bodies, but it feels like there's just an acknowledgement of that and then very little support or options, or at least they're hidden pretty well. I do try to do 15-minute strength training sessions most days, and I'll last a few months at a time, and then I forget and I stop. So I think it would be a good goal for me to try to spend time this next year staying on track with those and forgetting my forgetfulness to do them, because I will be really good for a couple months and then it's gone for a couple months until I'm sitting there one day at work and I'm like, oh yeah, forgot to work out for 3 months.
Yeah, I completely get that. And I've struggled fitting it into my day, even though I've worked from home for many years now. But it's like, I never could find quite the right flow. And I think I've got a good time now where like I wake up really early in the morning and I kind of plan out my day. Like I get onto my work machine and I like start figuring out what the day is going to look like and checking in on things. And then before everybody else wakes up, then I get in my little 15-minute workout. So like my brain has already figured itself out for the day and I'm able to like focus on my body for a little bit. And that seems to be working out pretty well. I did pretty well for the month of December. So I'm going to try to keep that up. Yeah.
That's way better than me. I skipped all of December. I think I did something one day last week, maybe.
Hey, that's more than 0.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it.
I've had a lot of 0 weeks too, so just try and have fewer of those. And then like the last thing that I'm trying to do is just bring some other forms of exercise into my life, and not anything that I hate, because I don't have time for that. I want things I enjoy. So things like dance and yoga and strength training, I found as an adult that those are forms of movement that I like. And so I'm trying to just like add those in as I can. Again, not anything strict, but just figuring whatever is going to get me moving will be helpful.
I hate most forms of exercise. I hate to sweat. I hate anything aerobic, which is why walking and strength training are much easier for me to stick with. I will do something like I'll skip breaks in between reps or sets. That way my heart rate stays up. I'm still getting that benefit. So I'm going to stick with walking and strength training. There are a few other things I found that I'm okay with. I like yoga and I like just dance with the kids, which I guess, yes, that is aerobic, but it just doesn't feel like it. So I think that's what I'm going to do, unless I happen to find something else that I want to toss in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so right now we're in kind of like New Year's resolution territory when like everybody's thinking about fitness or whatever. I'd really like to check in with you, if that's all right, as we get closer to our trip and start thinking about like ramping it up, especially in the summertime and into the fall. I think that's going to be a good opportunity for my family to think about like, how can we do longer distances each day instead of just we typically do about 1.25 mile loop on our average daily walk. So, when do we have opportunities to bump that up? How can we like convince our young son to keep walking a little bit longer, because he's not interested in the stroller anymore. So like we need to get him to keep up too. So yeah, I'd like to check in.
Yeah, I would too, especially for the motivation and reminder that I should be getting out there and walking, especially about probably 1.5 months, 2 months before the next trip. So then that way it isn't such a shock to my system when I am suddenly walking all those miles again. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let us know in the comments how you prepare yourself for the rigors of a Disney vacation. And remember to like and subscribe to plan along with us.